Kenya has remained behind when it comes to voting for this affirmative action.
It is indeed a big shame. That's Ida Odinga saying this is a big shame that this failed for the fourth consecutive time. You're watching The Big Story. Thank you for staying with us. We're having this conversation with Esther Passaris, who is the woman representative Nairobi County. And we're also speaking to Didmas Barasa, who's the Member of Parliament in Kimilili. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. Mheshimiwa Passaris, there is the concern that no gender specifically should be given preferential treatment. And just before we took the break, Didmas Barasa did allude to the fact that we have several women members of parliament and they're not visible. So why should we create more positions for women in this country?
We have a lot of male elected members of parliament, and the majority of them are not visible. I think it's important that we stop accusing each other and judging each other. I believe that women have addressed issues pertaining to citizens of this country. Kenya is in a bad place. Who has been governing Kenya? 90% of the people running this country who have plunged us into corruption and abject poverty are men. So when you tell me we don't need a change, we do need a shift. And I could actually feel the president in the past when he said, my hands are tied, I cannot deal with corruption. Okay, now as he tries to deal with corruption, he looks at the only solution being women, and he failed us because he should have actually been in the forefront of trying to ensure that this bill passes. Not because we want to be given a space. It is the political parties that have failed women. They are the ones, they're the starting point. They're the ones who are given the money. 30% of the funds given, taxpayers' money, given to political parties is supposed to empower youth and women. But it doesn't. It continues with the same old boys club. Sometimes you go to parliament and you feel like you're in a men's den. We need to have the 30%. That's the minimum that we asked for. If you look at SDG number 5, gender equality, which we're signatories to the SDGs, leave no one behind, it's about 50-50. We settled for 1/3, okay, for now. If you look at Nairobi, I always give Nairobi as an example. We have 17 constituencies. Only one woman, Kasarani, came in. So for me, one woman in Kasarani, if you didn't have the woman rep position, with a governor and a deputy and the senator being men, you'd have had only one woman addressing the issues of women in Nairobi. So, and this is the capital city. So we do need women. Let me look at the county governments. The county governments have no issues. The county governments in Nairobi County had 5 elected women, 80 men. And what did they do? They appointed and nominated the women. We don't want the nomination, but it's the political parties that are making it very difficult for women. So the next agenda then, maybe we should have a women's only political party, you know, and we drive the women agenda. Because male political parties, they are marginalizing us even further.
Mheshimiwa Barasa.
I think I want to make this clarification very clear to Kenyans. When we are pushing this gender bill, we are quick to mention countries like Rwanda, like Tanzania, but ask yourself one question. Are the women members of parliament in Rwanda nominated or they are elected? Are the women members of parliament in Tanzania nominated or elected? And ask yourself a second question, that in last general elections, we had Kenyans electing 3 female governors. So ask yourself, what magic did the Honorable Anne Waiguru use to defeat 2 men? What magic did Honorable Joyce Laboso and Honorable Charity Ngilu use to defeat a man in the last elections contest? Once you get the answer, then you'll know that what this country needs is it needs strong women who are going to move forward and say, I want to be elected on this particular position, and this is my agenda. Secondly, Linda, I want to make it clear that party leaders who are supporting this bill, including the party leader for the Honorable Esther Passaris, these are the lords of dishonesty. Because you cannot, on one hand, support women to occupy positions, but in your own hierarchy of the party leadership, it's dominated by men. Even when you are given an opportunity by the law to nominate people into the National Assembly, you are nominating men. You are nominating very few female. I think they have no locus standi to lecture this country on matters gender, because themselves have been the biggest defaulter of this bill, Linda. And I think saying that women are not given an opportunity in this country, I think is an insult to the Kenyan voting population. Because the Kenyan voting population, when they go to vote, they choose a person of their choice. They have their own marking scheme. They have their own criteria that follows, in electing a person to represent them anywhere, anytime, Linda. And I think the only people who holds the key to unlocking the stalemate that will see very many women elected are the current members of parliament, the likes of Esther Passaris. If they are going to articulate the women issues very well, then Kenyans are going to see value of electing women. But if they are going to just to sleep, if they are not going to be visible, if they are not going to be vocal on matters women, if they are not going to push governors to implement the law that gives women an opportunity to access tenders in their various government, then the voting population are going even to vote the only few female we have in the National Assembly home. We don't discuss about men being voted in and out because, of course, we know very well that we have a very good percentage of men, members of parliament, who are also replaced by their fellow men. Okay. So what we are saying here is that the female members of parliament, they should use their caucus to advance for the interests and the rights of women and not their own personal interests. That will see Kenyans begin to build trust into female and women leadership in this country.
Mheshimiwa Baraza, I was here covering the last general election and the campaigns, and we saw a couple of women being harassed during the campaigns in different parts of the country. So do you want to sit there and honestly tell me that there's an equal playing ground for women with respect to political positions in this country? And from where you sit, is there nothing good from where you sit that you think can come from this bill? Do we discard it in its entirety?
One, Linda, elections in this country are marred by violence. Even myself, when I was campaigning, I was beaten not once, not twice. I went even to the hospital. So anybody will be beaten when you are running for elections. There is no member of parliament, whether a man or a woman, who fights. But people use, guns that are available for hire to fight. And I think what women should do is to learn the mosaic, to learn the art of politics, and fight competitively. Two, I am not saying that I don't see any good thing that women are doing in this country. We have a number of women that are doing pretty very well. Mention female members of parliament like Millie Odhiambo. She has done a very good job in this country. Female members of parliament like Honorable Gladys Wanga. Where men are dominating, you will see them fighting for their space, and they will have their space. Women like Aisha Jumwa, you see how she has handled the threats by ODM to discipline her. She is unwavering. So what we are saying is that the women need to run away from the shadow of looking for free things, from the shadow of weakling. They have the brains. They have the brains. They have the energy. They have the will to form teams to campaign for them.
Mheshimiwa Passaris, I'll give you the chance to respond to Didmas Barasa, who says a couple of women calling out for the enactment of this particular bill are quote-unquote lords of dishonesty. And plus, I mean, the playing ground is equal for everyone in the country.
Okay, the playing ground is not equal, and I think he knows that if he has to be honest with himself. Look at the governors. We've got 47 counties. He mentioned 3 women have come through. One of them, because her political party was right behind her. The other one, she had the relevant resources to run the election. The politics of Kenya is about money, It's about political parties and their support and their waves. And political parties are the ones that give tickets for you to actually run. If women were to run as independent candidates, they would never manage Kenya's politics. Because, for instance, I wanted to run for governor in Nairobi, but to run for governor as an independent, right, would have required me to field agents. It would have cost me not less than $1 billion shillings. Where am I going to get $1 billion shillings? My call out now is to the women of Kenya. They are living in abject poverty. They have their children raped. They have their sons unemployed. They have their husbands unemployed. They live in slums that have no water, no sanitation. They die because we have nurses' strikes and we can't solve it. You know, the rich are still going to hospital. Their kids are fine. I want the Kenyan voter to understand one thing. Forget tribalism. Forget parties. Think about the fact that now it's about the rich and the poor. And there's nobody who can understand the plight of the Kenyan woman, the Kenyan youth, the Kenyan child than a woman. So I want us to start thinking twice. We're not enemies of ourselves. We need to vote for ourselves. We need to vote women in. This country will shift from the corruption that it has right now if we have more women. Because the men are the reason that this country is poor. Kenya is a blessed country. Kenya could be the richest country. We have been left lagging behind, divided by tribalism, divided by party politics, forgetting about issues. It's time, Kenya. The pain of poverty is catching up with every Kenyan. Even the middle class Kenya is suffering. So I think right now, since we've realized that the big political parties are not prepared to allow women to have that little space that they asked for, that is constitutional, all right, then we now need the citizens of Kenya. And you know, they've managed very well to actually make it look like, oh, if you put the women, it will be a big budget. The biggest budget is corruption. The parliament costs not more than 2% of the national budget, the entire parliament. Tell me about the 98%. Look at the headlines, 21 billion buying a ticket. Look at the mess in the health ministry. We are actually sinking because we have leaders, male leaders. This country has been governed by men. It's time to have a shift. And since we fought for the shift and we're not getting it, it's time for us to call it what it is. And I'm glad that we have said no referendum. Why should we spend that money on the referendum? Put that money to feed the Kenyans that cannot afford to feed themselves.
Mheshimiwa Pasaris, listen. So there's someone here who says, why should the bill be pushed for genders to be gifted with positions? Gifting a man or a woman positions isn't empowerment. Empowerment is strengthening a weaker gender to be able to compete comfortably with the other for the same position without discrimination.
If the political parties were able to use the 30% to allow women to go out and do work. Look, I won Nairobi and I had more votes than both presidential candidates purely because I came up with a project called Adopt a Light. I was known. I'd already served the people. Kenyans like to reward. I didn't spend more than 18 million shillings to win my seat. Most people spend a fortune. I didn't have to because I had already proved myself. So I want to tell you that majority of the women don't have the capacity to prove themselves. Even right now, the county governments are failing. They should have come up with a fund similar to National Affirmative Action Fund for the county to address an issue. And if they want an issue, let's address SGBV. Give the county nominated women money to go to the grassroots, to address street boys, to address sexual gender-based violence, to address environment, to address water, sanitation. Give them a budget. So when they come back and they say, we want your vote, they would have been felt on the ground.
Okay. Mheshimiwa Didmas Baraza, men are the problem in this country. I mean, we have so many issues in this country. We would be a better off country without all the problems brought in by men. And the positions the women are crying out for would actually make this country a better country. Is that an assertion you'd agree with?
Yes, I agree that even in Scandinavian countries where women are in leadership, the levels of corruption are low. I agree with that one. But the only thing that I want to disagree with Esther Pasaris is that in soliciting for votes, it's not always about money. We have a lot of very many young members of parliament today who never had money, but they won on the basis of their manifesto and what they were planning for their people. And I would want to challenge Esther Passaris that if she believes that money will have you elected the next general election 2022, she should relinquish her position for another woman so that she go to compete in a single constituency, so that to boost the numbers in Parliament. I also want to remind her that the Honorable Charity Ngilu won not because she was in the right party. You know, the Popular Party at that time was Wiper, which had the incumbent governor. So it's not about gender, it's not about money, but it's about a vision and accessibility by your people, the art of understanding and mastering what the voting population expects from a leader. You know, when you are campaigning, you always want to be like a pastor, like a man of God who creates hope into the hopeless people. That is the only thing that we need to do. Once you create hope in your people, that yes, you know, they have a lot of financial problems, they have social problems, but upon your election as a member of parliament, these are the things that we are going to implement that will make them lead a better life. It's these kind of things that will make them elect you as a member of parliament.
What's the way forward now? This is the fourth time this is flopping.
The way forward, what we need to do is that we need to relook at the Political Parties Act, and if we see any elements that differentiates women political aspirants, then we change those kind of laws so that we can give women a level playing field during party primaries. And this will be important for women. And it can easily be achieved, for example, if we have, if the party leader of a party is a man, and we have also a woman holding senior positions who can, ensure that the elections laws for that election rules for that particular party favors women.
Okay.
And also the women themselves, they need to, form caucuses and try to support each other. I want to see the female members of parliament like Esther Passaris, who made quite some money through her projects of Adopt and Light, supporting other women financially to be able to come up.
And that would be a perfect place to bring her into this conversation. Mheshimiwa Passaris, you get the final word in this show this evening.
First of all, I didn't make a lot of money because the men were so corrupt, they threw me out. The only thing I got out of Adopt a Light is the fact that I got an OGW, Order of the Grand Warrior, award from the president. I was recognized for lighting Nairobi, but in the end, corruption ran with Adopt a Light. Government took over the contract, and the majority of people that actually benefited from the Adopt a Light was corrupt individuals, not myself. And number two, for me, I feel that as women, we've been failed, and it's time that we stop dancing around politicians and start thinking about the poverty. Let's focus on the poverty and let's work for the poverty. But we're not going to get anything. And I really pray, for me, you know, the men are so arrogant in parliament, oh, we can't be dissolved. I just hope that the judiciary is an independent arm of government, will actually send parliament home. Because we need to learn to respect the Constitution. I said if you're a Christian, you respect the Bible. If you're a Muslim, you respect the Quran. If you are a Hindu, you respect the Gita Bhagwan. If you are an elected leader, you took an oath to respect and honor and uphold the Constitution. We have failed to do that as a parliament, and it's time for us to go home so that this country can start respecting the rule of law. We have failed. So let us see if the judiciary will actually save Kenya because otherwise, what's the point of having a constitution? I recently came across the American Constitution. It is a slim book. At the rate we are going, we'll end up with an encyclopedia, but what's the point? Nobody will read it, nobody will respect it. It will be Banana Republic. It will be just a few people that control this country and do what they want. That is why Kenya is so poor. Kenya is poor.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned the judiciary, saying probably let's see if the judiciary will save Kenya. There's need to send the parliament home clearly. Article 200. If parliament fails to enact legislation in accordance with an order under clause 6, the Chief Justice shall advise the president to dissolve parliament, and the president shall dissolve parliament. That is the threat that is facing parliament today. And it's on that note that we end the big story. Thank you so much for watching. I am Linda Ogutu, and I'd like to say a very big thank you to Ms. Esther Pasaris, who's the Nairobi Woman Representative, Didmas Barasa, who's the Member of Parliament, Kimilili, and Daisy Amdani as well, who's the Coordinator of National Women's Steering Committee. People, have a good night.